Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Tonight we have the pleasure of hearing from Andrew and Haley from FilmScene, and they're going to kind of tell us what all they have going on and answer any questions that you guys might have about FilmScene. So please help me welcome Andrew and Haley.
All right, I'm going to grab my little clicker over here. You have such great technology here. I'm jealous, even though we run a very fancy movie theater, we don't have one of these. So, thanks for the introduction. My name is Andrew. Andrew Sherburne. I'm the co-founder and executive director of FilmScene. I probably have stood in front of some of you once upon a time before. FilmScene was founded in 2013. Well, we opened our doors in 2013, so I don't think this room was built yet, but I certainly came and paid a visit to tell everybody about what we were trying to build in Iowa City. And so it's a pleasure to be back and talk about what we have built here, because there's been so much work over so many years, and including from some of the folks in this room. So I was just going to talk a little bit about what FilmScene is first, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we do, and then kind of what's maybe coming up, and then we'll just talk about movies, whatever you want to talk about. So again, FilmScene is Iowa City's nonprofit cinema. So has anyone here been to FilmScene? Has anyone been down to FilmScene? All right, quite a few of you. That's great. And I also want to check out, FilmScene was founded in large part to bring movie magic back to downtown Iowa City. So I also wanted to ask, does anyone have fond memories of maybe going to the Engler Theater when that was a movie theater? Any Engler movie theater? It was nice. The Astro, anyone ever go to the Astro? The Iowa? All right. So we've got some movie lovers here. There is a very rich history of cinema culture in Iowa City. In fact, we have a new film festival that we just started last year called Refocus Film Festival. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But some of you may have even been to the original Refocus. Does anyone recognize that name, Refocus Film Festival? Maybe went in the 60s or 70s? All right. Very well done. That was a very early American film festival when there were only a handful of them scattered across the country. Now there are hundreds, probably thousands. But Iowa City has a very long and rich history in the movies, and so we'll talk a little bit about that today. But first, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what FilmScene is. So FilmScene, as I mentioned, is a nonprofit cinema. What does that mean for anyone who maybe isn't familiar with what we do? It means we're picking our films because we think that their artistic merit means they should be on a big screen, or because we think they can start a conversation in our community, or we can support local media makers, filmmakers that might live here in Iowa. So our mission, I'll just read it. FilmScene's mission is to challenge, inspire, educate, and entertain our diverse communities through the shared discovery of film. So really, there's some key words in there, right? We're trying to build community through going to the movies. And we think that shared experience, that experience of watching something together and sharing that is really important, really, really critical. So when we talk about maybe even simpler but yet grander, what's our vision? A better community through the shared experience of cinema. So we really truly believe that this can be a better place to live by enjoying the movies together. And that's true of all the arts, I think, but we just happen to work in movies. So we're a busy place. By the numbers, last year, which was our first full year back into action, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the first year that we had a full calendar year again for quite some time, we showed 420 movies. Are there any calendar aficionados here? There's 365 days in the year. 420 is more than 365. So that's a lot of movies. And we had 65,000 moviegoers, or we hope to have 65,000 moviegoers this year come and watch movies with us. And we have over 2,000 member households that support us. Again, we are member-supported, community-driven, nonprofit cinema. So those are some big numbers, and they've really grown quite a bit over the course of 10 years. I wanted to talk a little bit about, the movies have had, actually I'm going to skip ahead for one bit. So we talked about those 2,000 members. This chart, you all probably miss sitting around talking numbers, and maybe in your careers you did a lot of finance, you got to see a lot of charts, but I want to share a chart that we think is kind of remarkable. If you look at these blue numbers here, these blue bars, that is the amount of attendance that we had every year. So you can see that's kind of slowly marching up and then drops off a cliff there when the pandemic happened. And then it's been slowly building up, but we're back now above where we were before the pandemic. That's pretty remarkable. We've grown. We added a second location. Some of you may have been to our original location on the Ped Mall. We now have a new location. Some of you hopefully have been to that as well. So we have 2 locations. So we've grown. So our attendance is growing. But look at this red line, which is pretty amazing. That's the number of FilmScene members that we've had. And even in 2020, when we were barely showing movies, we barely showed any movies that year, our membership hardly dropped. In fact, it grew ever so slightly. That's really a testament to this community and how much they support the arts. It's a tremendous arts community. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Maybe if you've listened to the news, you've heard about the trouble that the movie industry finds itself in. You know, people, especially during the pandemic, our theater was closed for 400 days. So that was a long time with no movies. And everyone was very concerned about what would happen when we came back. Well, the movies, this is a recent survey to see, what are people leaving the house to do right now? What do they like to go out and do when they go out? The movies you'll see on the far right are still the dominant thing that people like to, the dominant form of entertainment, the thing that's easiest and most popular among people to go out of the house. So movies are on the far right there. That's that big line. We over here, museums, and I think I have a laser pointer. Let's see if this works. Look at that. So museums and galleries over here. About 1 in 5 people go to a museum or a gallery every year. 30%, so about 1 in 3 people go to a sporting event. You all are pretty close to Kinnick, maybe, and Carver Hawkeye, maybe. Maybe you watched the women's basketball team this year. Anybody watch? Yeah. But 1 in 3 people go to a sporting event. Performing arts, so concerts and theater, we're getting a little close to 2 out of 5 people. But the movies, we still got 3 out of 5 people. So it's really incredibly popular still, even though we've had some troubling times. So we really do think that because of that, it makes us really well suited to bring people together, right? Because the movies are for everybody. It's an old American tradition to go to the movies with your neighbors. So what are some of the things that we do? I just wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we've been up to, because a lot has changed. If you haven't maybe visited us since before the pandemic, we're doing a lot of new programming. We've got a lot of things going on, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what that looks like. So this is something that started right after the pandemic, FilmScene in the Park. It's an open-air cinema. It's free for everyone in the community, and it starts in May. It'll actually start this year on Memorial Day weekend, and it runs through October. And so this is our outdoor open-air cinema. When the sun goes down, free movies in the park. So if you want to see maybe some classic cinema, you can come join us at FilmScene in the Park. We usually see a few hundred people for that. I just wanted to pick out a highlight here. We'll be showing North by Northwest. Anyone seen that one? Yeah. Great film. It should be fun to see this airplane flying across the Chauncey Swan Park under the stars. So that'll be our opening night film on Memorial Day weekend this year. But come on out to FilmScene in the Park. It's a great time. It's totally free. We've got concessions. We've got popcorn there if you enjoyed the popcorn tonight. Another thing that we've been doing, which I wanted to tell you about specifically for this audience, it's called Cinema Salon, and so this is a monthly series that we're doing on a Thursday afternoon, and I was trying to figure out when our next one is.
I think is it this Thursday?
It's next, this coming, not tomorrow, not 2 days from now, but Thursday the 11th, the film Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. Some of you may have read that book by Judy Blume, but there's a new film. It's a terrific film. I saw it last week. So Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. We'll be playing that next Thursday afternoon. And what's special about Cinema Salon, it's a partnership with the Iowa City Senior Center, and so we have a terrific leader, a conversation leader, and those films are discounted. They're only $5, I think, right, or $6? Few dollars, many fewer dollars than the usual ticket. And it's a chance for, we have a lot of folks come over from the Senior Center, but really it's open to anybody in the community who wants to come see a matinee film. at a very affordable price, and then have a conversation afterwards. And that conversation is led by Lynn, who is a great friend of the FilmScene and a friend of the Senior Center, and that will follow immediately after the film. So if anyone wants to kind of meet some new friends or talk about films, once a month on Thursdays, Thursday afternoons, we have this terrific Cinema Salon series. So if you're interested in that, maybe I can follow up with like some more direct information. I don't know where Lindsay went, but I'll send that along to pass out, because we'd really love to see some of you there. So that's been a great series for us. Also, we're doing one thing that we've been committed to. If you have been to our new location at the Chauncey, when we built that new space, we really wanted that to be Iowa's home for cinema, and you can't have a home for cinema without real film playing in that projection booth. So we now can play 35mm film, which is how it was played, of course, for a century. So we have 35mm film programming and 16mm film programming that we occasionally do, and that's just a lot of fun. There's really something different about it, something it kind of brings you back. You can, if you listen closely, you can maybe hear the projector in the background, but you can see the flickering of the light is a little bit different when you watch a film on film. So that's been a delight, and so we pick out, I think last year we did like 15 or 16 films on 35mm. And it's a bit of a lost art form, so we're one of the only places in the state of Iowa that can project 35mm film. So if that sounds like fun for you, I don't think Raging Bull is on 35mm, but it's an example of a restored classic. It recently got a new restoration. That one's actually going to be in glorious 4K digital, but we love to play classic films. So if you want to maybe catch a favorite film, or if there's a film you never saw in the theaters when it came out 30 or 40 years ago, keep an eye on our schedule. We love to play those newly restored classics. Another thing that we've been bringing back just this year is something called FilmScene 101. So I mentioned Cinema Salon. Cinema Salon is a terrific kind of regular gathering of folks to see new release films and have conversations. But then we have something called FilmScene 101, which is really kind of getting to know a specific subject matter a little more deeply, led by an educator, a professional educator in our community. And so these we have every quarter, and we'll pick a topic. And I think this fall we have one on classic, kind of golden age Hollywood musicals. So if you want to take a class on musical cinema, they're very affordable, just regular price tickets, and then they're followed by a conversation with our educator to talk a little bit more deeply. So that's a really fun thing. If you're kind of one of those folks who never gets tired of learning, you can come to FilmScene 101. And then, we've been fortunate enough that we're starting to get some special guests back in town once in a while, now that travel has really picked back up. So here you've got the filmmaker Michael Moore, who paid us a visit not too long ago. I put down there when we're lucky, because you never really know when you might get someone special visiting town. Again, we do have this Refocus Film Festival that we're putting on in October, so we'll be bringing in a number of filmmakers for that. Maybe some that you've even heard of, or maybe someone new and exciting. But we do love to welcome special guests and have those special programs. One thing that we're having as part of that Refocus Festival is actually author John Irving, who some of you may remember. He was here in Iowa City for quite a long time. He will be here playing his Oscar-winning film, Cider House Rules, and he'll be joining us for a conversation after that. So yeah, mark your calendars for October for that film festival. And then, of course, new release films. We, kind of our bread and butter, the thing that we do every week is open brand new films every Friday. And so there's multiple films opening up every week. And so we hope if you want to stay on top of what's new in the film world, we are now, again, if you've been listening to the news, you may have heard that kind of the movies slowed down. That was a big challenge for us. There just weren't as many movies being made because it's very difficult to make movies during the pandemic. So now things have kind of picked up. We've got a regular slate of movies opening something, usually more than one something, every Friday. And that's been a delight. So I just wanted to maybe, here's another, again, just grabbing an example. If any of you are Michael J. Fox fans, there's a terrific new documentary about Michael J. Fox and some of his struggles that he's had. That's opening on May 12th, so next Friday. Michael J. Fox film called Still. So those are just some highlights. I'm going to back it up because I'm going to hand this off to my collaborator here, Haley. Those are some highlights about some of the things that we're up to right now. Some of the new programming initiatives that we have, some things that I thought you might be interested in. I'm going to hand it off to Haley. She's going to tell you a little bit more about what's coming up, and then we'd be happy to talk more movies and see what questions might be out there. Haley?
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. I'm Haley Crabb. I'm the Membership and Development Director here at FilmScene. Can I get a show of hands? How many folks here are members? Wow, thank you so much. So going back to FilmScene's history, so started in 2013, and that was because of community support from members like those in the room. It was really a huge chunk of this Iowa City community who came together to raise funds to open FilmScene, which is really, truly tremendous. As Andrew mentioned, we are a nonprofit, so our membership program is really huge to FilmScene's long-term success in Iowa City. So I won't talk too much about it. I do have some information over by the popcorn if you want to get a refill or you want to learn a little bit more, but we have a range of membership options. All are tax deductible, most of them are fully tax deductible, and we do have a special membership for seniors, as anyone who's 60 years and above. So hope you will pick that up and learn a little bit more. But I think back to our 10th anniversary, so that's coming up this Thanksgiving, which is really pretty incredible, and we absolutely want to do something big to celebrate. So stay tuned. We will have a very fun programming series that we'll be sharing more about, but we'll also be having, a campaign with our community, with our supporters to ensure that FilmScene can be here for the next 10 plus years here in Iowa City. So expect some fun events, activities, movies, and all of that. And with that, I think we'd like to open it up to any questions or stories that you'd like to share with the group.
Actually, yeah, Wally.
I don't know if everybody can hear me, but I just wanted to compliment you, Andrew, because you and your team have really done a fine job. And it's amazing to me it's been 10 years. But look what we've got now, and it's really wonderful. And I also sort of see you as with the new director of the Art Museum, the new director of Riverside, the new director of Hampshire, the new director of the English, as part of a young Turk group, if you will. I mean, you're not young, but
I was younger 10 years ago.
40s who are taking over the culture in our town.
Well, thank you.
And I think it shows great promise. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, Wally. It means a lot, and I'll throw it back in that general direction because, Wally, you've been so instrumental in the arts in this community, and Karen, sitting right next to you, was FilmScene's very first board president. And of course, Dick on the other side of you here has also been incredibly instrumental. So thank you for all the support over so many years. Yeah. And yeah, it's, I do think that there is, I think one thing that I mentioned at the start was, FilmScene really was born out of a need that this community had after, the Astro and the Englert and the Campus 3. All of those movie theaters had shuttered, and I think there were a lot of people that wanted to see movies back downtown Iowa City, and it really took a community effort. I was the co-founder, but part of the reason it's a nonprofit is because I sure didn't have the money to start it up on my own. So it really took a huge lift from the community, and so I'm incredibly grateful. And I think that's been a big part of keeping so many people around in this community, and so much of the growth of the arts and cultural community here has been because so many people are so supportive. And it really just starts with the fun stuff, going to the movies, going to a concert. So keep doing that. Does anyone have any questions about what we do or what we might be showing?
I have a question regarding streaming versus what showing movies in the theater, whether you're seeing. My question concerns streaming, you know, over cable versus what you show in the theater, the experience. Do you have any comments about that? Or have you seen anything different?
I've got a lot of comments. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on streaming versus seeing something in a theater. I guess the first thing I would say is that the experience is just completely different. You can listen to your car radio, or you can go to a live concert. You can watch something streaming at home, or you can go to a movie theater. And to experience the arts with an audience is part of the experience for me. And I think especially, you know, movie theaters kind of demand a certain level of attention, right? The lights go off, maybe you're not worrying about some of the chores you got around the house, or, you know, getting phone calls in the middle. You know, you can just focus your attention on the story and really be transported to another world. And I find that hard to do at home. There's a lot of great content out there. They use that word a lot these days, content. But, you know, there's TV shows and movies, and there's an endless number of things you could stream at home. But how do you decide what's worth your time? That's one of the things that we like to help with. We don't put things on our screens that we don't think are worth your time. The things that we're going to show on our screens, we believe are totally worth your time. And I don't think that's always true of everything that you can stream at home. So I think that's part of it too, that curation. We have a full-time programmer and a part-time programming assistant, and their job is to make sure that we have the best movies on screen, and to bring those audiences in. And then I guess, you know, the other thing I would say is, you know, this community invested, right? Many of you invested in our capital campaign to build our kind of Greatest Small City for the Arts, Strength and Grow Evolve campaign. We invested in incredible sound and incredible picture in that room. So it's something that most of us don't have at home. So it's a treat, I think, to be able to experience movies in that sort of setting. And then I guess the last thing I'd say about streaming versus the movie theater is when everyone was trying to figure out what this brave new world was after the pandemic started, I think a lot of things got rushed out to streaming. Kind of, they'd be in theaters and the next week they'd be at streaming, or maybe they just go straight to streaming. Movie distributors are kind of rethinking that. They're putting movies back into theaters because they realize that it is a better experience. It's also kind of their best marketing for the movie. There's something about it that generates excitement, and so a lot of movies are going back to theaters first. So that's great for us because it means that we can have them for a while before they go to home streaming, and audiences will come find them. And I think we're getting back to a place where we're all kind of in it together. Yeah.
You mentioned 2 locations. You mentioned 2 locations. Do you operate 2 locations now?
Yeah.
Where are they? I mean, Chauncey and where?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so how many of you have been to our original, maybe you don't know, the Ped Mall location? Lots of you, great. So we have one location that's right in the heart of the Ped Mall. It's 2 screens there. They now seat 55 and 20. We've actually, if you haven't been there in a few years, we've totally remodeled the seating in there. We did a remodel of the lobby. It's quite wonderful. It's still got the original charm, but more comfortable seating. We heard that a lot. So more comfortable seating there. And so that Ped Mall location is still open and operating. We love that space. And then we built a new space, FilmScene at the Chauncey, and that has 3 screens. That's part of the Chauncey multi-purpose building. There's a bowling alley and an amazing coffee shop there. And so we have three theaters there that seat 110, 65, and 25.
So you can have 5?
Yeah, so we have 5 films playing at any one time. Yep, and oftentimes, as I mentioned, we open new release films, so there's probably 5 new films playing any week. But then we also have a half dozen special events probably during the week as well. So these are oftentimes, they're the classics, the restorations, community collaborations. We do a lot of that, where we work with a community group who's interested in seeing something on screen, something in particular. I'm trying to think. Well, just yesterday we played a film called Meituan. Some of you may have seen it, John Sayles' film from the 80s, but it's about a labor movement, and so it was May Day, it was International Laborers' Day, and so we hosted that screening with a number of unions and labor organizations in Iowa City. So we do things like that quite often where there's something that we think is an important thing to talk about in our community, and we bring in a film that allows us to do that. So yes, at any one time, there's at least 5 movies playing. Yeah.
When I first came to Iowa City, I went to a couple of shows at the Coralville Drive-In.
Oh, yeah.
Just to give you an idea. At that time, I can't recall how many theaters there were downtown, but there were a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they're nearly all gone.
Yeah, so just remembering how many theaters there were. So that Coralville Drive-In, I believe, was right now where the Coralville Center for Performing Arts is, kind of right around there. So there's still art happening there, but a little bit different. But yeah, I think at one time, I think at the height of kind of that era that you're referring to, there were probably 5 theaters downtown, maybe 4.
More than that.
Oh yeah, more than that. Even the Garden, I believe, was a theater that was around. Maybe that was a long time ago. But the Strand, yep, good memory. But yeah, it's the very first movie theater in Iowa City, I believe, was in the 1890s. There was something called the Cauldron. Was where the very first movies were shown in Iowa City. Including by a man named Frank Brinton. So if you've seen that film, The Brinton Legacy. But yes, Iowa City has a long tradition, many theaters. Yeah, right here, and then we'll go to Karen. Yeah.
The Metropolitan Opera live broadcasts are now at Sycamore Mall in a theater that has not great sound and.
Oh, here, you need a microphone for this.
Oh, sure. And the rest of the theater isn't all that great. Is there any way you could get that and have it up at the Chauncey instead?
So the question was about the Met Live broadcasts, which currently play at Marcus, and Haley's probably taking. We're both taking mental notes here, so we can look into that. They do have an agreement with the way that some of those things are kind of distributed. It's a Fathom event, yeah. It's a Fathom event, which we have now started playing occasionally, but that's kind of a contract that we would have to figure out. I appreciate that. I think just to talk about that a little bit, we have, there has been some interest both from our part and from our moviegoers in seeing some kind of non-traditional, like non-cinema things in a cinema, like the Met Opera or theater. And so yeah, there's opportunities for that, and it's something that we'd be interested in. I think one of the hard things for us is knowing that people will find it and they will show up. So if there's a dedicated group, maybe it'd be helpful to us to know that those folks are out there. Yeah.
The number of people who go has dwindled a lot, and a lot of it is because of the condition of the theater, and particularly because of the sound.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah. Well, we do. Yeah, we've got superior sound. Hopefully that doesn't upset anyone to say that. But yes, thanks for that, Karen.
Yeah, Andrew, I wanted you to talk about the animation camps and if they're ever going to be for adults.
Sure. So animation camp, and whether we'll do that for adults. So FilmScene has had for the last 9 years now a summer camp, animation camp, and if you've been to FilmScene, you may have seen the work of our young animators play before the movies. Just a little snippet to welcome you. So animation camp grew. The first year we had 3 weeks of animation camp. We now have 9 weeks of camp. It's a huge thing for us, and we actually shut down one of our cinemas and turned it into a movie studio for the summer, where these young kids from grades 3 through 8, actually a little bit older, 3 through 8, let's say 3rd through 8, can make amazing animation with the help of our lead instructor. And so it's really been terrific. We have some support from Hills Bank. We've got great support from all the banks in this community. In fact, Midwest One sponsors our family series, and Green State sponsors our community collaborations, and Hills sponsors our animation camp. And we've been able to provide 100% of the scholarship requests for that camp. So anyone who needs a scholarship, whether it's a partial scholarship or a full scholarship, we've said yes, always. So that's been terrific and helped our camp grow. So it's a lot of fun. And to answer your question about whether we might do it for adults, we did do it once and it sold out in a matter of minutes. So I know that there is interest. So we'll take that back. We basically just have to find a time that works for us and for our instructor. But thank you for reminding me. And I think right here in the blue.
What kind of rules and so forth that you have regarding the films that you can show and what the Marcus English shows, and the for-profit and the non-for-profit? There's obviously a certain amount of
Yeah.
competition.
Yeah, so the question is, what are the rules about which films we show and which films you might see at the multiplex? And it's quite complicated. Usually, I guess the simplest way to say it is we can play most of the films that we want to play. We just have to request them from the distributor. They sometimes want us to play films that we don't want to play. So that can get a little complicated. And some of those relationships with bigger distributors, you kind of have to, they want you to play everything that they're opening. And we don't always want to play everything that they open. Because again, we do have, we want to curate, right? We want to help you, we want to have that trust with our audience that if you come to something at FilmScene, it's worth your time. It may not be your taste, but it's well crafted. We have to enter a negotiation with the distributors to make sure that, if we want this film, they'll let us play it. Sometimes they do just have small releases where they only play it 800 theaters around the country, and then sometimes we miss out. But usually we can get most of the things that we want. The one big exception is Disney. Disney has a rule that you can only play new movies or old movies. And because we have so many of these special series, like our family series, which is very reliant on Disney films, but Disney also now bought out Fox recently, you may have heard that. So all of the Disney and Fox films that you may have seen 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago are all owned by Disney now. And they're just so important to those park screenings, those classic restorations, the family stuff. We need to be able to play those. So we said we'll take the old films, even though the new ones make a lot more money. The old ones help build community. So, was that? I thought I saw a hand back there. Yeah.
Yeah, I have kind of a comment. My husband and I went a few years ago to see, I think, Little Women
Oh yeah.
in your theater, and it was so overwhelmingly loud that it just blew us away. We were very uncomfortable. And I remember mentioning it afterwards. I mentioned it to someone else and said, oh yeah, when I go there I have to take earplugs. Now, if you happen to start showing opera, the opera people are not going to like that. I mean, I don't like it, and I just wonder, do you get complaints about too much sound?
We get complaints about too much sound and not enough sound, and
So
yeah, usually sometimes both in the same screening, but it is, I think it's a bit of a challenge, I will say. We do keep it a little bit louder because I think one thing that folks really don't like is when they can't hear when the sound isn't good and they can't hear the dialogue, they can't hear the film, so we usually do favor it being a little louder. I think the auditorium size makes a difference too. If you're in you may find maybe you like louder films, you want to sit a little closer to the screen because much of that sound comes from directly behind the screen. If you sit a little further back in the theater, it's a little bit quieter.
So where are all the speakers? Are they on the sides as well as the front?
Yeah, so we'll do a very quick audio movie cinematic audio lesson. So Most new films are what they call 7.1, and that means there's 7 directional speakers and one kind of the one is kind of the bass, what they call it, like all those low sounds you hear. So the most of the sound is going to come from right behind the screen. If you go to a movie theater, there are huge stacks of screens right behind, or huge stacks of speakers right behind the screen. And if you walk up really closely to a screen in a theater, you'll see tons of tiny little holes in the screen. There are millions of tiny holes. So the sound comes right through the screen. That's what gives you the illusion that the people on screen are talking, and that the sound is coming from what you're watching. And then the speakers that are around you, that are on the sides and in the back, those are usually for those sounds. Maybe you've sat in a film where you hear something, you heard it behind you, or you hear it from the side of you. Those are those surround sound speakers, and so those are often kind of supporting sounds. But most of that sound comes from the front. So yeah, if you think if it's too loud for you, and I totally understand that, yeah, you might prefer sitting a little bit further back. But we do. I mean, we try to be attentive, and sometimes a film, one of the things people think it might be really, just playing movies. I think there's maybe a misconception nowadays that playing a movie for us is just as easy as hitting play on your DVD player or on Netflix or whatever. It's not quite so simple. We get the film from the distributor on a hard drive. So it's a big computer file, and we have to load it into our really large server. And then all of these movies have different people mixing their sound. So some of them are really loud, and some of them aren't very loud. And so we have to watch every single one of them and set the appropriate sound level. So sometimes we might not get it perfect. Sometimes it might be a little loud. Sometimes the way they mix the films is goes from very quiet to very loud. And again, we want people to be able to hear the dialogue. So we usually, sometimes, if most of the movie is kind of right here, but there are some loud scenes, those loud scenes can be really, really loud. Did anybody see Top Gun Maverick in the movie theater? I mean, that's how they wanted that movie. You'll remember when the jets take off in that movie, it literally makes your entire body shake from the sound. So, but that's what they wanted. So it's, sometimes that's what the filmmaker is hoping for. Anyway, that's a very long answer to a somewhat complicated question that seems maybe not so complicated. Yeah.
Financially, how were you able to stay afloat through 2020, 2021, and 2022?
Well, thanks to some of the folks here in this room who raised their hand and said they were members or maybe made a donation. So a lot of it really was the generosity of the community. But we also, we had to downsize our staff. Only our core staff remained on staff. Our part-time, hourly, front of the people who sell you concessions and box in tickets. We couldn't employ them during the pandemic, so we did get smaller. But we kept all of our full-time staff on. We didn't lay anybody off. That was really important to me. That those people kept their jobs. But we did get some support. There was a fair amount of federal support and state support, specifically for the arts, because we're in the business of bringing people together, and that was the one thing that was a pretty big no-no for a while. Was you don't want to get a whole bunch of people in a room together. So we did have some support, some grants, some forgivable loans. We did get a very low interest loan from the Small Business Association that was really instrumental, and we were actually able to purchase our space. So we are now the proud owners of our space at the Chauncey, those theaters. Yeah, we're also the proud owners of a very large mortgage, but that was really important for us. That changed the equation for us. But we sold popcorn. And people would drive up and we deliver popcorn to them, and we tried all sorts of things. We opened our park cinema during the pandemic so people could gather outside. But it took a lot of creativity to get through it, and as I said, a lot of just generosity. Yeah, well,
Yeah, you know, we used to have the same battles about sound levels at Andrew all
yeah.
the time. Because everybody hears things differently.
Mm,
You know, you could put 1,000 people in and they would all hear different performances,
yeah.
even though they're in the same room. I did want to ask you maybe a deeper question about the power of the movies. I'm sure you've thought about that a lot because you make movies as well as you show them and raise money for them. We have a lot of people from Iowa City now who are in the movies, you know,
Yeah.
which is very interesting to me. The hottest producers in the world are from Iowa City, you know, Joe Russo.
Yeah.
And my question is, you know, when I read a book, I imagine the world around me guided by the author,
Mhm.
to put it simply. And it's such a different private experience from going to a movie and watching this landscape that's filled in for me, where everything's described. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it about the movies that makes it so powerful? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the most powerful art form on your chart. More
Yeah.
than ballet, more than theater, more than you know, concerts.
Yeah.
It's number one in our culture. Why
Yeah.
is that?
So the power of the movies. I mean, I think it's you know, as you said, you know, while I was saying, you know, when you read a book, and this is part of the wonder of a book, right? A good book is that you're able to create these worlds inside your own head. The author can give you that ability. But the movies are a very different experience. And I think it's an incredible marriage of other art forms, really. I mean, cinema is just the convergence of so many things, right? It's photography moving at 24 frames per second. It's incredible. It's orchestral scores, oftentimes incredible music. It's playwriting or screenwriting. It's storytelling. There's incredible sound mixing. It's costume design and set design. I mean, when you watch the Oscars and you see all the people that are involved in a movie, it's kind of a miracle when any movie actually works because so many people are involved and so many things could go wrong. So when a movie does work and it does teleport you, it is really magical. But I think, you know, I think it does come back to, I mean, part of it's a relationship with the art form, and so I think going to the movies is different than watching at home, and I think you're playing your part when you do that. You're shutting off everything else. You're willing to go somewhere new. You're willing to be taken on a journey. So going into a dark theater, or even if you're watching at home, turning off the lights, turning off your phone, not worrying about the the dishes in your sink, whatever it is. I do think that that's part of it is to be willing to want to be taken on a journey. But I think it's it's big pictures, it's big sounds, it's feeling hearing the laughter from the people around you in a theater, or maybe hearing the silence if something's deeply moving. I think that shared experience is a big part of it. I think it's truly magical when you see the right movie at the right time. Back there.
Do you have a relationship with the Film Studies program at the university? And if so, what is it?
What's our relationship with the Film Studies program? We have a really wonderful relationship with the University of Iowa. We are an independent community 501c3 nonprofit, but the very first call we made when we started FilmScene was to the Bijou Film Board. Anybody here, that's another one I didn't mention, anyone go to a movie at the Bijou Cinema at the University of Iowa? And that was in many different places over the years. And I loved the Bijou. When I moved to Iowa City, I would go to the Bijou every week. But there were limitations to what they could do, both in their space and the programming that they could do. And so we wanted to have something better for Iowa City, but we wanted that legacy to live on. So they have been a part of our organization for the last 10 years. We work with the Bijou Film Board, which is a student organization. They have not complete autonomy, but they get to choose films and program films for our screens. They get to work with us and kind of build those professional relationships and skills. And they get to put on movies and bring audiences in and get to know what it feels like to be film programmers. So that's a really important relationship for us with the BSU Film Board, but with the entire student body. They're also one of our connections to the campus community, the greater campus community. We also work with, get back to your original question, the Cinematic Arts Department, which is really terrific and I think is, growing. It has a very long and storied history, and it's very strong again, I think, right now. So we've always had a member of the Cinematic Arts Department on our board of directors. And we work closely with them. When we have guests, we try to bring our guests to those classrooms so that they can meet students and inspire them. We try to make sure that they're aware of the programming that we're doing, so they can send their students over. We host a number of, in a few weeks, we're hosting an MFA screening, so the film students who, when they finish their master's thesis project, they can play it on our screens, a proper cinema screen. I think, which is a treat that they don't get in other places. So we try to do everything we can to, to honor the work that happens over at the university. I think they likewise do what they can to support us.
So we also recently did an Out of the Archive series. I don't know if anybody was able to stop by, but that was in partnership with Professor Haley O'Malley and her graduate students. I know we're very involved in the programming and leading Q&As with directors and other, folks who are really critical to, the restoration, distribution, creation of these films by Black female filmmakers. And I know that's a series that Haley is eager to continue in 2024, and I think we hope to do that. And she reached out to FilmScene because we were able to expand the reach of that critical series.
Maybe there's more questions for you. Yeah, in the back there.
How wide an area do you get customers from, or clientele? How far? Do they come from Chicago, or is it just from Hills, maybe Cedar Rapids?
How well do you know this?
Yeah, I will attempt, because I think I know a little bit, but Andrew might have to clarify. I mean, it does seem like our core audience is really here in Iowa City, and we get some folks from Cedar Rapids, say in other parts of eastern Iowa who maybe come more regularly. The Refocus Film Festival, like Andrew mentioned, that we relaunched in 2022, has definitely brought some folks out from the region. And I think I can speak to being a transplant to Iowa City, so I moved here from the Twin Cities this past summer, and I've been coming to Iowa City for many years for family, and we always came to FilmScene, and I knew a lot of folks like that who might have a connection to Iowa City, aren't here, but when they're visiting, FilmScene is a part of their radar, and our hope is with this Refocus Festival that we can continue to draw in more folks from the region. But yeah, Andrew might have more to add.
Do you have any opinions about Criterion as a film restorer?
Sure. So Criterion, the question is about the Criterion, and they've been that, for those who maybe have heard that name or have never heard that name, wondering what it is. Criterion is an organization that has been around for many decades that is devoted to preserving and restoring film. And a lot of the work that they do is to celebrate specific directors or genres that they think are worthy being preserved. So we work with Criterion, and they have partnerships with other film restoration, or like they have an exhibition arm, so we play oftentimes restorations that they may have been a part of. So it is, they're an important part of the film ecosystem, and there's, I think, as film continues to, more and more films get released every year, more and more films get older every year, and so there are more and more films that are kind of in need of that TLC of someone, whether it be Criterion or the Film Foundation or Kino Lorber or Janus Films. There's a number of these organizations that do this work, and it's really important. They're preserving our history. And as Wally said, there's something magical about movies, and we've been exhibiting films for over a century, and so we don't want to lose those films that are 80, 90 years old. And so oftentimes they're working on some very old films to keep them, to put them in a modern format so that we can continue to enjoy them.
Well, I've often wondered how they make their choices.
Oh, sure.
They seem rather idiosyncratic sometimes, and there are things I wish they would do.
Yeah, I think they've been rightly criticized for kind of having a traditional approach to kind of who they celebrate, and so I think I hope they are working. I think they are working to diversify some of the filmmakers that they celebrate. More female filmmakers, more filmmakers from around the country or from around the globe, because there's so many filmmakers from other countries that deserve to be celebrated. So yes, I think as many folks have in the last few years are maybe looking at their own work in new light and wondering, oh, what have we been overlooking for many years? Yeah.
I've always been intrigued by the credits and all the different titles.
Sure.
Tell me what a best boy is.
So the question is about film credits and what a best boy is. I don't know that I can actually answer that question, what a best boy is. I mean, there are a lot of people that work on a film. I think a best boy is an assistant electrician. I'm gonna have to Google this afterwards to make sure I'm correct. But yes, there are gaffers and best boys and all sorts of titles that you probably wonder what the heck that is. And I think, as I said before, I mean, it's just amazing. Wally was talking about how many Iowans are connected to the film industry right now. There are a lot of Iowans working, especially as screenwriters, and you may have heard there's a screenwriting strike that started today. So we wish that a quick resolution. But this is a writing community. We're storytellers here in Iowa City, and so there are many folks that may have graduated from the Writers Workshop or just the English department or the nonfiction program who are out writing scripts in Hollywood, or maybe our producers, powerhouse producers, faces you may not recognize, names maybe you recognize, but people who are doing amazing work. And I was just using that to get around to, we recently had Scott Beck and Brian Woods in town. They had a new feature called 65, which is a pretty outrageous dinosaur space adventure. Yes, dinosaur space adventure. But they came, and the film was a lot of fun. They said that they had 300 people on set every day for that film. So if you can imagine all the titles that have to be handed out for that, it is a lot of people working on those big films. And those are just the people on set, not the people doing post-production and marketing and all that other stuff. Did we have a question there? And did you have a question?
Yeah. Back in the day when there were all those movie theaters downtown,
Yeah.
there also were daily newspapers and one page with a lot of movie things on it. How do you let people know what you've got now and what you find really works for you? Has it changed?
Yeah, so the question is, how do we tell people what we're playing? We actually have some literature over there. We may have to come back. This is such a great crowd. I don't know if we brought enough, but how do we get the word out about what we're playing? There's a few things. We send out weekly emails. So if you have an email address that you check regularly, you can sign up for our emails. We do it once a week, every Wednesday, to tell you what's closing and what's opening, as well as all the special events. So that's kind of our regular thing that people come to expect. What's over there is our In Focus calendar, which is, for those of you who are members, you get that in your mailbox, which is hopefully an exciting moment every few months. But that's every 2 months we send that out, and that will have almost everything. I say almost everything. We try to get everything in there, but then we have late minute additions sometimes. But everything that will play over a 2-month period. So right over there we have our May-June issue. If you want to pick one up, you can grab one on your way out. And that will tell you all of the new release films that we're playing, as well as the date we think they're opening. Sometimes those dates change. It's not totally in our control. And then all of our special events, which almost never move, we put those on the calendar and keep them there. So that's your kind of 2-month snapshot. And it's even got a handy little calendar on the back for all the special events if you want to take that to your refrigerator or
But you should say too that online you can buy your tickets.
Sure. We also have a website which has everything on it. You can search showtimes, you can find films, and you can buy your tickets online. And you know, we're actually doing a little work to freshen it up right now, but it's a pretty robust website. And you can also, sorry, go ahead.
your own tickets, or do you have to go through a ticket service?
We have our own ticketing service, so you can just buy icfilmscene.org, and we can share that later. But you can just buy right through our website or right at the box office. That's the easiest. We don't use those Fandango or no, we don't. No. Yeah. Do we have a question? No. Any other questions? You all have all sorts of great questions, by the way. All right.
Thank you.
Well, yes, thank you all for having us. And just to close up here, as Haley mentioned, we're going to be celebrating 10 years this year, later this year, around Thanksgiving is our birthday. So thanks to everyone here who has played a role in that, whether you made a gift to FilmScene or whether you just come to the movies, it all counts, it all matters to us. Thanks for getting us to 10 years, and we hope that you'll come back to the movies again sometime soon. Thanks so much.